The plow scraped down the street in February 1984, long before alarms were set to ring. A metallic symphony against the pre-dawn quiet. Outside, a world lay buried beneath 2 feet of fresh snow, pristine and utterly still. Their breath fogged the cold glass as they peered out, a silent witness to a landscape transformed. In that era, connection wasn't an invisible signal through the air. It was the tangible presence of a snowstorm, the shared thrill of a hockey game, and the certainty of neighbors showing up. Downstairs, the rich aroma of brewing coffee already filled the air, mingling with the low murmur of Pete Exowski's voice from the kitchen radio. The rhythmic scrape of a toaster punctuated the morning calm. Outside, the temperature might plunge to minus 23 degrees Celsius, yet within those walls, a profound sense of warmth, safety, and familiarity settled over them, a feeling almost impossible to articulate to those who had not experienced it firsthand. This was Canada in the 1980 seconds, a pivotal decade nestled between the echoes of what had come before and the looming promise of an entirely new century. For those who lived through it, the essence of its difference was palpable. To revisit an ordinary day from that time is to unlock a flood of memories, recalling precisely why many still refer to them as the good old days. Saturday mornings held a singular, almost sacred meaning. Cartoons. Children would rise early, not coerced by parents, but compelled by the fear of missing an episode of Inspector Gadget or the Raccoons. It was an unthinkable sacrifice. They would pour themselves a bowl of brightly colored cereal, like Sugar Crisp or Lucky Charms brands that, with their formidable sugar content, would likely face prohibition in modern times. Then, they would settle cross-legged just 2 feet from the television set, the coarse carpet often scratching at their legs. The television itself was a tactile experience, equipped with physical dials that required a deliberate turn to change channels. Should the picture flicker or blur, someone invariably had to rise and adjust the metallic rabbit ear antennas, guided by a chorus of shouts from others, debating whether the image was improving or worsening. Remote controls were a luxury, absent from most Canadian homes until the middle of the decade. There was no streaming, no pausing, no on-demand viewing. They watched what was broadcast, when it was broadcast, and in truth, they were deeply grateful for it. One woman recalled the frantic rush home from a friend's house, propelled by the immovable start time of the littlest hobo at 4:30. Missing even its opening melody felt like a small tragedy. The show's poignant theme song, Maybe Tomorrow, held an emotional weight, capable of bringing tears to their eyes, with its narrative of a stray dog wandering from town to town, offering help, yet never lingering long enough to find a permanent home. It was a concept that simultaneously broke hearts and filled them with a quiet hope. But the true national event, the one that brought the entire country to a standstill, was Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada. From the Pacific shores of Vancouver to the Atlantic coast of Halifax, from the farthest reaches of Street, John's to the northern expanse of Yellowknife, at precisely 8 p.m., nearly every television in every home across the vast nation tuned to the same channel. Fathers would occupy their favorite chairs, while mothers might be found folding laundry on the couch or engrossed in knitting a future Christmas sweater. On the floor, siblings would engage in heated debates over the supremacy of the Oilers or the Canadians, a discussion that, at its core, revolved around whether Gretzky or any other mere mortal was the greatest player to ever grace the ice. During the intermissions, someone would inevitably make popcorn on the stove, a far cry from the microwave varieties that would later dominate. They would stand, shaking the pot back and forth over the burner, listening intently for the rhythmic popping to slow, striving for that perfect balance just before it began to burn. The rich, buttery scent, underscored by a hint of salt and that telltale, slightly burnt edge, would permeate every corner of the house. And then, something truly remarkable would occur, something almost inconceivable today. During the game, the entire street would fall silent. Every single house was absorbed by the same broadcast. One could step outside during the second period and hear the muffled voices of the announcers echoing from living room to living room, a shared soundtrack across the neighborhood. When Canada scored, a wave of cheers would erupt from every direction simultaneously, creating the sensation that the entire neighborhood was, in that moment, one giant collective family room. After the game concluded, they would bundle up, despite the 10 p.m. chill and freezing temperatures, and head outside. The streets would quickly fill with children playing road hockey under the glow of the streetlights. They used tennis balls instead of pucks, which would simply slide too far on the icy surfaces. Someone's garage door invariably served as the net, and somewhere, a father's muffled shouts to keep the noise down would drift from a nearby home. Nobody ever truly wanted to play goalie, knowing it meant enduring a barrage of frozen tennis balls, with only their winter coat offering meager padding. But to rewind to early in the day, before the game, before dinner, was to discover the true essence of a Canadian Saturday afternoon. Children would wake, eat breakfast, absorb their cartoons, and then mothers would hand them $2 and a simple directive: go outside. This wasn't a suggestion for a brief excursion. It was an instruction to leave after breakfast and not return until dinner. That was the unwritten pact. The sole governing rule was to be back when the streetlights came on. $2 was a substantial sum in those days. With that money, children could embark on a pilgrimage to the corner store, the quintessential mom-and-pop shop where Mr. Patel or Mrs. Chen knew their names, and almost certainly their parents. The bell above the door would jingle merrily upon their entrance, and they would stand before the candy counter, grappling with the most crucial financial decision of their week. Jawbreakers were a mere 5 cents, Pop Rocks a dime, while a substantial chocolate bar, an O. Henry or a coffee crisp, cost 35 cents. They could emerge from that store with a paper bag brimming with candy, still feeling the satisfying jingle of change in their pocket. The owner would count out the change slowly, dropping each coin deliberately into their outstretched palm. Occasionally, if a child had been particularly well behaved, or if the owner knew, perhaps from a passing comment from their mother when she bought milk, that they had been unwell the previous week, an extra pack of gum might be slipped in for free. These were not merely transactions. They were small, human moments. The person behind the counter would inquire about school, or advise them to bundle up against the impending cold. As they left, the bell would jingle once more, and they would step back into the cold, clutching their paper bag as if it held untold treasure. Then came the true adventure. Children and their friends would converge at the local park, the sprawling ravine, or that inviting empty lot 3 blocks away. Hours would melt away as they painstakingly constructed snow forts, elaborate structures that seemed capable of withstanding enemy fire. The older kids often boasted a colossal fort, a weeks-long project with walls 4 feet high and tunnels large enough to crawl through. If newcomers arrived and were not disruptive, they were generally welcomed. Age was less important than a willingness to help dig. One individual recounted taking their sled to a nearby ravine. He and his friends would embark on the arduous hike to the very top, a journey that felt interminable, only to then launch themselves down steep, winding paths barely wide enough for a sled. Sometimes they would wipe out spectacularly, occasionally colliding with a tree. One friend, he recalled, even broke his wrist during such an escapade. Yet, the following weekend, everyone was back, for that was simply what they did. They fell, they got up, and they went again. This pervasive sense of freedom was not a reflection of neglect. It was not parents failing to care. It was, quite simply, childhood. Children would return home from school, complete their homework at the kitchen table as their mothers prepared dinner, and then, as if on cue, they would vanish back outside until dusk. The streetlight rule was an unshakable covenant. When those orange lights flickered to life, they had precisely 15 minutes to be home. Failure to appear would result in a mother standing on the porch, her voice echoing across the entire neighborhood, summoning them home, an embarrassment to be avoided at all costs. So, they returned. But until that moment, they were utterly free. Lost in the woods, on the outdoor rink, cycling on forbidden trails, exploring construction sites that were undeniably unsafe, or building jumps for their BMX bikes that would launch them 3 feet into the air. No one possessed cell phones. No one could track their movements. Their parents simply trusted that they would eventually reappear, hungry, cold, and perhaps a little scraped up, and they always did. But what truly set the 1,980 seconds apart from today, a distinction frequently articulated by those who remember the era, was the concept of trust. This trust extended beyond parents and children. It permeated the entire community. Homes remained unlocked during the day, and many even remained unlocked at night. One woman vividly recalled her mother leaving a simple note on the door. At Loblaws, back by 4, that was the extent of their security. No alarm systems, no Ring doorbells, just a piece of paper and the implicit assumption that no one would intrude upon their home. The milkman, a figure of a bygone era, still made deliveries in the early 80 seconds in some neighborhoods. He would leave glass bottles on the doorstep before sunrise. Residents would place their empties out, and he would replace them with full ones. Occasionally, a mother would leave a note requesting an extra pint of cream or a dozen eggs, with the money tucked securely beneath the bottle. And it worked. No one took the money. No one stole the milk. The entire system operated on the simple premise that people would, for the most part, do the right thing. That same spirit of trust manifested in countless other ways. If a car broke down, within minutes, someone would invariably stop to offer assistance. If it snowed heavily overnight, neighbors would, without being asked and without expecting anything in return, shovel each other's driveways. If someone on the street fell ill, casseroles would begin to appear on their porch, no coordination, no Facebook group organizing it. People simply helped, because that was the unspoken obligation of neighbors. And then there was the phone, a device that brings a smile to the faces of those who remember it. That avocado green or harvest gold landline, firmly attached to the kitchen wall, boasted a cord so long it could stretch into the dining room. That phone was the undeniable epicenter of one's social universe. To speak with friends, one simply called them. If the line was busy, they would hang up and try again in 10 minutes. Texting was non-existent, and voicemail was a rarity in most homes until the late 80 seconds. It was a simple system of ringing and ringing until someone picked up or didn't. Yet there was a profound beauty in this simplicity. If a friend's line was busy, one simply walked to their house. A knock on the door, the friend's mother answering, a shouted summons upstairs. "Jenny, your friend is here." And Jenny would come, bounding down in her slippers, and they would settle into the basement, watching music videos on Much Music until dinner. Much Music was, for Canadian teenagers, everything. It launched in 1984, instantly providing them with their own version of MTV, but intrinsically better, because it was theirs. Christopher Ward and J.D. Roberts became household names. Teenagers would spend hours glued to the screen, hoping to catch Corey Hart's Sunglasses at Night, or Bryan Adams's Summer of '69. When the video for Glass Tiger's Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone premiered, every student in every school across the country would be discussing it on Monday morning. This was the mechanism by which culture permeated, not through algorithms or fleeting TikTok trends, but through millions of people simultaneously watching the same music video and dissecting it the following day. Acquiring music was an entirely different ritual. There were no downloads, no Spotify. To own a song meant a trip to Sam the Record Man or A&M Records to purchase a cassette or a vinyl record. Albums typically cost $8 or $9, a considerable sum when one was earning $4 an hour at a part-time job at Dairy Queen. Singles were more affordable, $3 or $4, but even then,